bringer. Kelly, let's go with this one. This is interesting. We're going to start bringing on guests to talk nutrition to me that have various backgrounds, but we might not talk at all about their business. We might talk nutrition and we might talk about certain health issues. And our guest today, Kelly, who do we have? And we're going to kind of lead us in this direction because, as we talked about when we recorded our last podcast, the challenges people can lead to from health choices to having certain dietary issues. And we're going to talk about Crohn's disease today. So, Kelly, who's our guest?
So we have Ryan Aguas, the Director of Network Development at the Rainstor Group. So Ryan specializes in helping individuals and businesses owners to slash taxes, crush debt, and build lasting wealth. But like you said, Neil, we're going to talk a lot about today of some of the different health challenges that he has. And I really think it's interesting because the majority of the people that we talk to probably are dealing with some type of health condition. And so, Ryan, thank you for coming on the show. I'm excited to hear your whole background. I've heard a little bit through Neil, but go into some of what the things that you're dealing with right now.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Obviously, this is not something I love to talk about um, that much to people I don't know, but as you get to know me, you'll learn more about it. But given the sake of the topic of the podcast, I think this is very appropriate. So for me, I grew up loving food, all different kinds of food, loving to cook. I worked in kitchens, tried all different things. And then as I was getting closer to age 19, I started having different problems. This was when I was in, this was right after high school. I was in community college at the time. And then I found myself going to the bathroom after every meal. I tried to eat healthy. I tried to fast. Nothing worked. It only got worse. Constantly feeling like I need to throw up, feeling issues in my stomach, always having stomach aches. Something was wrong. That led through many different tests and all different tests. I was constantly going to the doctors. And then a week before I ended up going to the school I was transferring to, I found out that I had Crohn's disease. Um, and then this was in the back of my mind, but I'm like, no, it's definitely not that. Um, because my brother has Crohn's disease. He's had it since he was maybe 4 or 6 years old. So I was familiar with it, but I'm like, no, definitely not me until it was me. So that was a lot to discover, a lot to deal with right as I was starting out at college and I was starting out as a soccer player. I was playing at a new level I've never played before, also trying to figure out what to do, also on these different medications that affected my hormones and energy levels and all different things. Um, and then the last, I don't know how many years it's been now. I'm 25, so I guess 6 years, I've found the foods that upset me the most were the foods that you'll find in most places. Um, so dairy was one of them. That one was a slow progression. Uh, at first, I was able to eat dairy fine, and then it was like if I eat too much dairy, like ice cream or milkshake, that's bad. And then it's only cheese and yogurt, and then nothing at all. I couldn't eat dairy at all, including butter, which is in a lot of desserts. The other one, which was a little harder to discover, was corn. And this was harder to discover because I didn't realize how much it was in everything. Um, so any trace of corn, so whether it's cornmeal or corn syrup, was giving me issues. Um, so it wasn't just popcorn, even though I loved popcorn and kettle corn, but you'll be surprised in this country how much how much foods have corn in it. The other things, which was very surprising to me as well, was raw fruits and vegetables, where I can only eat it when they're cooked. Um, and then I think I'm missing another one. Um, Alcohol wasn't really a problem for me. Um, and then caffeine wasn't really a problem for me until I graduated and was in my master's. That became more of a problem. Um, and Yeah, I think between those ones, it made it very hard to figure out what to eat. And then I'd find myself eating a lot of um, meats and greasy foods, and then that had its own problems. So there was a lot of discovery, and it wasn't one fix all situation that I had to find.
Ryan, were you ever recommended to a dietitian?
Yes, I've seen multiple dietitians. Um, I think the issue was I never stuck with one repeatedly where I've been consistent with meeting with them. Um, and honestly, I don't remember why or why not. I know the latest one I've talked to, um, it was really on their end because I met with them, I scheduled them, and then I never got a follow up. They said their coworker is a specialist in Crohn's, so they're going to refer me to them. And then I never got a referral, and I'm like, all right, I don't have time to deal with this right
Right.
now. I'll come back to it. So I think the problem was even though I've met with them initially, I've never had the follow-ups and follow-ups that would have been helpful.
Yeah, I think Crohn's is a tough diagnosis, as you know. You're living it every single day. But for people that don't know what Crohn's is, will you explain in your words what Crohn's is? Because some people have never heard of it before.
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly Google it or chat GPT it or ask a doctor, but for me, from my experience, I would describe Crohn's as a um, issue within your digestive system where you cannot properly digest foods, and then this affects you in all different ways because if you don't digest foods you don't get the nutrients going to different parts of your body. um so that's the easiest way to explain it.
Great way.
um yeah, I have it in my lower intestine, so that would be different than, or yeah, large intestine, so it's different than small intestine or different areas too. So there's many ways it can affect you. For example, me and my brother have it in very different ways.
Hmm.
Very interesting. And I'm glad you explained it in your words too. It helps.
Ryan, when you talk about Crohn's disease and specific things, you think you ate healthy growing up mostly?
I ate a lot. I was always a very skinny kid, so you wouldn't tell, but I would always eat seconds and third servings. And if someone offered me vegetables, I'd eat it too because I didn't want to be hungry. Because I was always hungry. So I'd eat a lot. I would say healthy because I didn't eat a lot of sugar. Um, which when you're kids, I feel like that's the biggest issue is eating too much sugar and soda. So I was able to control myself in that area. And yeah, I still ate the vegetables, but yeah, I would say so.
Hmm.
It's interesting of that you and your brother, because we know that these autoimmunes are genetic and they can be triggered on. Neil and I were just kind of talking about this before we started the podcast today. Some of these genetics can be either switched on or off. And for people that are listening, it's called like epigenetics. So it's above your genes. And it's kind of like a light switch. In certain things, it could be a cold, just like I'm having right now, could trigger on that light switch, or it could have been, you know, certain diet or stress levels. Like you went into, switching over schools or things like that. And even where caffeine could affect you differently because of stress levels. So it's really interesting of when it gets switched on, of how those genetics are there. But they can either be triggered on or kind of stay dormant for the rest of your life. So it's really an interesting thing. They're learning a lot more about epigenetics.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I'm pretty sure I know what happened because so I got diagnosed in August 2019. There was a long series of tests. I probably started realizing that there was something wrong with me in February or March. But in the previous year, October, actually around this time of the year, as the day before Halloween, I was in a car accident and it affected my back. I had a bulging disc and was injured from that. So that I'm thinking that that caused a lot of stress in the body
Yeah.
and caused that sort of reaction for that to come out. And that was also difficult in the sense where in the front of me, I had stuff issues with my intestines, and in the back of me, I had stuff with my spine. So if one's swelling up, if the stomach's swelling up, that presses on my spine, or if the spine's swelling up, that presses on my stomach. So it was very hard to figure out where the problem was or how to deal with it because they were same area, just front and back. So yeah, that caused a lot of issues there.
Yeah, and that's where it's really interesting that a stressful event can trigger it on even more. I'm sorry you went through that. It sounds absolutely horrific. Um, and dealing now, like, how are you? Because you're working, you're out there. I mean, what is your daily life affected by Crohn's?
I feel like at this point it's not as affected, and even back then, I try not to make a big deal with it. I really came to terms with where I'm at with everything, and I didn't want to use it as an excuse or a burden. Um, but yes, I would say, in terms of do I have to think about what I do and do I have to um, be very intentional about what I eat? Yes, I would have to be that because um, I would know like if I were to indulge in certain area, sure I can get away with it, but what are the effects? How long will that affect me? Could that be something that triggers a flare up that I have to deal with for a few days? So I would say yes. Now, lately I've been more controlled. I've been on a new medication, Skyrizi, and I feel like that's been affecting me a lot better, because that's targeting the immune um, response area. So I'm starting to be able to reintroduce foods that I haven't been able to eat before, um, without without issues. So
Interesting. So Kelly, what questions would you, after hearing about this, what questions would you offer him anymore regarding this diagnosis and how he can help?
Well, I like that he described Crohn's as the that you're almost lacking in the way of nutrient absorption. And
hmm
so that's where when looking at, lab work and being able to work with his with the doctor, it's really nice to be able to see where we are with nutrient deficiencies and then what we can do to build that back up again. And also, there's so much more research now on gut biome and looking at probiotics, prebiotics. What can we add in slowly so not to upset that large intestine, but what are ways that we can start to build up that immune system? And so it's pretty cool in nutrition right now that we have so much more research than we did when I started back in 97. If you came to me with Crohn's back then, I'm like, ugh, not really sure, stick with the foods that are with you. But now we have so much more research on how to build that back up, understanding also like SIBO and different things that could have been affecting. And SIBO is just a small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So what's going on in the small intestine, what's going on in the large intestine, we know so much more.
It definitely seems like we know so much more. And what do you think after introducing medication, Ryan? What things do you have to watch out for when you're on your daily life?
are you saying which foods I have to
Yeah,
watch out
foods,
for?
foods. Yeah.
Foods? Yeah. Well, we just had Halloween, so candy. If you look at the ingredients in candy, almost all of it has high fructose corn syrup. So yes, that yeah, I mean, personally, I don't watch too much with the sugars because I don't crave it naturally. So I feel like I don't know. I'm not. I feel like I can eat a little more, but I have to be very. It's very hard to find the ones that I need, that aren't from corn. But yeah, a lot of desserts use butter. I'm starting to reintroduce dairy through cheeses and yogurts and stuff that have lower dairy levels, but um, butter's always been an issue, so that one's been harder to consume. And then that's in, like I said, a lot of desserts, a lot of pastries. Um, and then other than that, sometimes it really just depends. If it's a good day, I might not feel anything. If it's a bad day, it might be bad. So, but yeah, I'm always looking at things through the grocery aisle, looking at the ingredients. And then if I'm not the one cooking, usually I'm hoping for the best.
Ryan, I think it's really interesting. Just last night, there's this. great dietitian, and I am totally missing her name right now. She's a PhD, and she just went on and talked about why there's so much high fructose corn syrup. And she said it's because we have so much corn in
Yeah.
America. So by using that high fructose corn syrup, it's a cheaper alternative. It is a sugar. And so instead
Hmm.
of getting sugar from other countries, we're using that. And it is, like you said, in so many different so many different foods
Hmm.
in America.
And same with dairy, because dairy is also, we have dairy farms everywhere here. So same thing, same thing. And I don't want to go on a rabbit trail, but
Yeah.
yeah, in the United States, food's different here. It's not a, it's not a resource. It's a commodity. It's something we trade like clothes. It's something that we could store up and something that we could do different things with. So it's different here than it is in other countries. Um, and in cap, the way economics work, we have a lot of corn, so we need a lot of uses for it. And in that sense, it's great, but in my sense, it's terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And I think we're finding more people are sensitive to it as well. So you're not alone.
Yeah.
The latest statistic is, Neil, I don't know if you know, but 70% of Americans are dealing with a digestive disorder.
Oh my,
70%.
oh my goodness.
It is extremely high.
It sounds like it. And Kelly, how can we fix that?
Well, it's a lot of different things, just like Ryan's saying. I mean, it's understanding that what foods are going to actually help heal our body and reduce inflammation, and what are foods that are going to trigger it. So having those simple sugars is going to trigger inflammation and cause some issues. And then having fiber rich foods, but just like Ryan said, with his condition, like having cooked fruits and vegetables, making sure, we're getting in still those nutrients and vitamins and fiber sources. So there's a lot, it's a lot, but there's also a lot of treatment for things like IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. There's a lot more treatments that we can do through food and understanding. But I think a lot of it too, like Brian, we were saying, like has to do with stress levels, what's going on outside of the body as well as inside the body.
Totally. It's something that to look at for sure. And Ryan, what do you think? What tips would you offer people like when they first get those certain symptoms, what they should do?
Um, yeah, I mean, I said this a little bit in the beginning. For me, like I said, I didn't want to use this as an excuse. I didn't want to put it as a label on myself. I don't want to use it as a burden. So I think that's much more valuable than the actions you take and the stuff you do. It's a lot in the mindset. For me, I'm a big in my faith with God, and I use that to define me rather than the conditions I have and the stuff that happens to me in this world. So to me, that was really big in helping me get through this. And I never, I wasn't crying every night because of my conditions, because of the pain, or because of these situations, because of that. So I think that's the most important thing for me. And then the second most important thing is, do your research, do your due diligence, talk to the doctors, um, talk to the people that are smarter than you, because there's a lot to learn, and it's very easy to indulge in the things that you did. And, my favorite foods were cheese. Like I love things with cheese. And then eventually I found out I couldn't eat it at all. So that was very hard. But so I could have, eaten pizza, but that would have really affected me. So you really have to, yeah, it's going to be a struggle, but you have to avoid the foods. You have to find which foods are giving you the issue, and um, work with that until you go into remission, and then you can enjoy those foods and do the things that you want to do again.
You know, it's interesting, Kelly. He's an athlete, so you played Division 3 soccer. So explain, it's not like you were not eating poorly. You really just were an athlete, and just it just happened to you.
Where'd you go to
Yeah,
school?
I went to school at University of Valley Forge. Big shout out there. I also used to work in admissions, so I could talk about it all day.
That's
Um,
great.
and then so I went there. It was a great school. I studied digital media, and I was on the soccer team. And at first, when you're playing sports and you're getting up early for classes, you're going to develop a big hunger. So I was eating, 3 servings a meal. Um, I don't, and the crazy thing is, well, okay, now I'm getting sidetracked, but I'll just say I looked at my weights because they put your profile from each year, and the only weight difference from freshman year to senior year was 1 pound. I don't know how I did that, but I think Crohn's had a lot to do with it. Um, but anyways, sorry. But yeah, I ate a lot of food and had a lot of problems. And yeah, I really just went with it because I was hungry. And I didn't even know what was going on. That was my first year. Later, the second year was COVID, so we didn't even have a season. Um, so we just practiced, and it was not nearly as fun. The third and fourth year, I did have a season, and then by that time, I did have a lot more understanding of what was happening with me. So I had the medication I was on didn't really solve any problems, but I didn't have any extreme problems. So I didn't have any emergency situations or crazy flare-ups, but I still had to avoid certain foods. So with that, I really had to be open with my coach. I had to tell him what was going on, and and then that really helped because he was on my side, helping me whenever we were out for team dinner, all the away games, helped me find foods that I can eat, and sometimes it was foods I didn't want to eat, but I just had to eat because I had to get through it. So um, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be an exactly easy situation. It probably could have been easy if I had an apartment and was able to cook for myself and bring to go foods, but that's very hard to do when you're you're in school, you're working, and you have a sport. So but yeah, really find what works for you. Some people have their situation a lot worse than I do, and if you're doing a sport, I think that's awesome. I think if it was worse than was experiencing, I don't know if I could have been able to do the sport. But yeah, if you're facing that situation, I don't want it to stop you. I want you to try. And if you have opportunities like that where you can cook for yourself, I think that would really take it a long way.
Interesting. This is a young man that really shared, Kelly, and
Yeah.
we have to really applaud him for coming out and talking about this
Sure.
because I guess you and I are pretty truthful about what we say.
We are
But
very
a
true.
lot, but a lot of, or I guess, or I get the information off of Kelly and her guests, and we really get, but this conversation really understands why you do what you do, Kelly.
Yeah.
And one thing is, Ryan, can we disclose that you check out Kelly's website?
Yep.
And yeah, and he's
I'm
gonna.
I'm gonna book an appointment. She takes my health insurance
Sure.
and seems to know what she's talking about. So definitely gonna. Well, now you already know a lot about the situation, so it'll be a little easier for you now, Kelly, when we meet together.
Yeah,
So
no, that she has a team of professional dietitians, but we'll definitely share that stuff for sure. And Ryan, tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Rainstorm Group and Rainstorm Media.
yes, definitely check out our podcast. We have the wonderful co-host of Neil Haley on our show as well. And we actually just recorded an episode yesterday. So usually my dad, Michael, is the host of the Rainstorm Radio. And yesterday I got to host my first episode. So check us out on the Rainstorm Radio at on Spotify, Apple Music, soon to be on YouTube as well.
And rainstormmediagroup.com. If you like what you had to hear about Ryan and want to learn more about what he does at Rainstorm Group, you go there and you let him know that you heard it from listening to Talk Nutrition to Me. And you could go to kellyschoice.org and schedule a call with a dietitian today
Yep.
and make sure you also pick up the new weight loss era. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks again. That was the special